Well, good afternoon, everyone. Beautiful sunny day in I was going to say Manitoba. It is a beautiful sunny day in Manitoba, but it's a beautiful day here in Ottawa, and a very special day because Bill C-21 is up for second reading, which will give effect to the Red River Métis Self-Government Recognition and Implementation Treaty. And I know we have some proud Manitobans standing here, MP Ginette Lavack, MP Kevin Lamoureux, and we all know as Manitobans that there would be no Manitoba if it wasn't for the Métis and Louis Riel way back in the late 1800s. And I've been fortunate to represent a good part of the district that Louis Riel represented. And I know Ginette Lavack the same. And we are here to support President Chartrand, Minister Gould, and the Manitoba Métis, welcome them to Ottawa on this very, very special day. I'll hand it over to MP Lavack.
Bonjour tout le monde. Une journée très importante. On est très, très fiers d'être ici comme membre du gouvernement pour voir lire une deuxième fois le projet de loi C-21 qui, en effet, va donner vie à l'entente qui a été signée entre le gouvernement de Métis ainsi que le gouvernement fédéral. Donc, je pense que c'était un moment historique, un moment important dans les pas vers la réconciliation. C'est un acte de réconciliation qu'on fait aujourd'hui en faisant avancer ce projet de loi important. On ne veut plus que ça tarde. Je crois que c'est le moment propice vraiment de faire avancer ces données très importantes. Alors, on est là pour supporter nos collègues, nos amis de la Fédération Métis du Manitoba, ce gouvernement Métis, et on est très fiers d'être avec eux aujourd'hui.
Thank you very much. I hope it's loud and clear. Okay, good enough. Thank you. Today is a very historical day. You can see a smile on my face. A very proud day for the Red River Métis. We've been waiting 156 years for this day. So it's a long time coming. One that was promised to us again in 1870, that a treaty would be negotiated and settled by Prime Minister Johnny MacDonald at the time. And however, that did not take place. Instead of a negotiation team coming in, a military team came in and dispersed the Métis into the west. So when you look at history today, it's not only important for us as the Red River Métis, it's important for Canada. Canada's been on a very young country, by the way. Canada's not an old country, it's a very young country. And Canada's been searching to try to correct its wrongs and try to do what's right. And as we move forward through reconciliation and moving in a pathway, we anticipate that this should be supported by all parties. I've met with all parties, I've consulted all parties. I've got strong support from the Bloc Québécois, NDP, I got it from the Green Party, and we've had very positive discussions and meetings with the Conservatives. So this is about Canada. Do we believe in correcting the wrongs of our past and trying to fix the pathway to the future? Or do we just try to continue discerning ourselves into separate pieces of race and identity? We're all proud Canadians. The Métis fought vigorously in World War I. We fought in World War II to defend this country that never really respected us. But we love this country, and we hope Canada loves us back. So this will be part of that history of change that is necessary. And the treaty to us, many, many shedded tears at our assembly. Over 4,000 people of delegates were at our assembly. A lot of tears were being shed when it was announced through Minister Anand Desandagri. I have an accent in my speak. So I thank him on 2021 when he signed the self-government agreement. And when he came, the tears started pouring from our people. And so even just now, this morning, we put out a press release that this is happening. We have over 1,000 likes already and tears and hearts being shared that this day is here before us now. So I anticipate a whole party support on this. I don't see why it wouldn't be unless there was a different agenda beyond that. I just walked through the halls here and see Louis Riel's name twice in Parliament, which he was never allowed to take his seat in this very essence of land we sit on today with our federal government. Riel was never allowed to take his seat, even though he was elected 3 times as an MP, member of Parliament. There was a bounty on his head for $5,000 instead of allowing him to be the elected official representing Manitoba and Western Canada. So from that perspective, we hope they're not going to deny Riel's right to be finally recognized for what he achieved in bringing Western Canada and Manitoba into Confederation. So it's a great day for us, and I thank the Liberal Party. I thank, of course, the Manitoba MPs. I thank our Prime Minister today, who's here. There's Gary. Thank you, Gary, for your hard work and support of moving towards the self-government. It is long, many, many years, many consultations by thousands and thousands and thousands of people that we met throughout, getting this thing in order to make sure that everybody understands what this is all about. It's about correcting our past, moving forward to a positive future where we stand united as Canadians, especially now, what we see happening to us from the South. As Canadians, we need to stand together, not against each other. So it's a proud day for us as the Red River Métis, and as President, I can't tell you enough the pride I have inside of me as a leader. I've been fighting for this for over 30 years. So again, thank you all, and all I can do is say again, thank you to all parliamentaries who will be there today, hopefully supporting this, and that this will move on to get royal assent in the very near future. So thank you very much.
Chartrand, just before the speaker parade comes through and we have to take a break.
Sure.
Can you just tell us a bit about just what self-determination will mean for the Red River Métis once this legislation goes through?
Well, first and foremost, it allows us as a nation, the Red River Métis people, to govern ourselves, to have the right to create our own laws that govern our electoral processes, assures our own bylaws of how we operate as a people, as a government in the West. It gives us also a sense where I think it means more to us than anything, is a sense of correcting that wrong. That wrong treated us as aliens of our own country we fought for, gave our lives for, protected this country we so love, and yet it treated us as an hostile people, that they did not want to recognize us and they didn't want to believe in us. And that fight's not over. We're still in that fight with Canada, where they have not come to full recognition of their responsibility. And I believe in the Constitution of Canada. The unfortunate part is sometimes political parties do not follow the Constitution of this country. So I hope clearly at the end of the day it'll set the pathway that we have a good relationship, government-to-government relationship, nation-to-nation relationship, and that we'll both move together for a positive agenda for all of us.
Just kind of on that similar topic. I did a story about the UPIP funding, the Indigenous urban program for Indigenous people. And you had said that it was sort of a step back, moving the wrong direction on the distinction-based approach. Do you see this as, I guess, a step the other way, sort of back in the right direction? And do you see this as we'll start moving more in that direction rather than one step back, one step forward sort of thing?
Thank you for that question, because we were quite surprised. It was clearly a political mishap inside the department, where somehow they were believing that a different organization would serve my people, which we have no internal affiliation with. So it clearly was an internal mishap. That's been corrected to us already. The minister and I had a very good discussion on this, and they apologized for that mishap, and they were fixing that problem right away. But when you have the treaty and the recognition, then you don't go through whether you're in or out. You're there, and we should be there. We helped build this country. We helped build our position. Western Canada would not be what it is today if it wasn't for the Métis, neither would Canada. So from our perspective, I think we're in a position that this is a win-win for all. It's not us winning alone. Canada wins. Canada starts to do what's right and understand what they did when they're wrong, is they're going to fix it now. And that's what reconciliation is all about. And I think Canadians support reconciliation without a doubt. So from my perspective, it's a good day for everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm responding to the government's announcement that they are in fact going to use the majority that they have put together through backroom deals to stack the decks at committees and give themselves power that the Canadian people specifically did not vote for in the last election. And we are calling on the government to, at the very least, preserve the balance, preserve the checks that the oversight committees provide on government. So there are three committees, the Public Accounts Committee, the Government Operations Committee, and the Ethics Committee. Right now, the majority on those committee, reflecting the will of the Canadian people at the ballot box, is made up of opposition members. And that allows the opposition to hold the government to account, to investigate spending scandals and corruption allegations and ethical violations. This is what Canadians voted for in the last election. They wanted a strong opposition that could act as a check on this Liberal government that has driven up prices, that has caused inflation, that has driven up home prices. and made life so unaffordable for so many Canadians. So any excuse they might have about a legislative agenda does not apply to the oversight committees. These are important committees where the opposition does the work on behalf of Canadian taxpayers and voters to shine a light, to go through line-by-line spending, to find out who got contracts and how decisions were made. That's what these specific committees do. Rather than use their newfound majority to make life more affordable for Canadians, the very first thing this Liberal government has done is to make life easier for themselves, to avoid scrutiny on their legislation and to avoid transparency on their decisions. And so we are going to move an amendment to their motion to specifically preserve the balance that Canadians voted for in the last election on these important oversight committees so that we can make sure that we don't see the same types of corruption and spending allegations get swept under the rugs that we saw the last time the Liberals had a majority. Remember, in the last minority parliament, it was these committees that discovered the ad scam scandal, discovered contracts going to the privileged few that had special access to the Prime Minister. We discovered the Green Slush Fund scandal where Liberal insiders were funneling money into their own companies. It was only because the opposition had a majority on these various committees that we were able to pass the types of motions to conduct these types of investigations. The only reason to stack the deck on these oversight committees is so that the government can sweep these types of investigations under the rug, shut down and block investigations into potential conflicts of interest and spending scandals. So once again, we will be putting forward an amendment to preserve that balance that Canadians have voted for in the last election. I'll invite my colleague Luc to make a few remarks in French, and they'll be happy to take your questions.
Merci. Alors que le gouvernement a choisi de faire en sorte de changer la composition des comités pour refléter non pas la décision des Canadiens à la dernière élection, mais plutôt son désir de contrôler l'ensemble des comités. Il va prendre une journée au moins pour faire passer cette motion-là, au lieu de s'intéresser à ce qui préoccupe vraiment les Canadiens, c'est-à-dire réduire le coût de la vie, réduire le coût de l'essence. On va demander au gouvernement au moins de faire une chose, c'est de laisser 3 comités inchangés pour permettre une vraie reddition de comptes envers les Canadiens. Les 3 comités, c'est les 3 comités de surveillance sur lesquels l'opposition détienne le poste de président. On parle du comité des opérations gouvernementales, le comité des comptes publics et également le comité de l'éthique. Ce sont ces comités-là qui ont permis de révéler les scandales au cours des dernières années à Rive-Cannes, le scandale du fonds vert, et qui ont aussi permis d'avancer par rapport à l'éthique du précédent premier ministre. Et on sait que ce sont des études qui parfois peuvent être difficiles pour un gouvernement, mais les Canadiens ne nous envoient pas ici comme opposition officielle pour rendre la vie facile au gouvernement. On nous envoie ici pour que le gouvernement puisse rendre des comptes. Donc, c'est important pour nous que ces 3 comités soient maintenus dans leur forme actuelle. C'est pourquoi demain, nous allons proposer un amendement au gouvernement. Si vraiment M. Carney était sincère quand il a dit qu'il voulait laisser un rôle important à l'opposition, il va autoriser ces 3 comités à ne pas changer de leur composition, à demeurer comme ils sont actuellement et donner la possibilité aux membres de ces comités d'étudier les faits et gestes de ce gouvernement au niveau soit des dépenses, soit au niveau de l'éthique, soit au niveau de la corruption, parce que ce sont des dossiers qui sont importants pour les Canadiens. On a vu, on a accompli beaucoup de choses avec ces comités dans le passé. Donc, si le gouvernement est sérieux, quand il dit vouloir collaborer avec l'opposition, il va accepter notre amendement pour maintenir la composition de ces 3 comités.
Pour être clair, est-ce que vous voteriez en faveur de la motion des libéraux s'ils adoptent votre amendement?
Bien, écoutez, c'est sûr qu'on va voter en faveur de notre amendement. Donc, on va voir le résultat du vote sur notre amendement avant de vous dire... Non, mais il n'y a pas d'échange de suppositions. C'est juste ce qu'on dit, c'est d'abord et avant tout, votons pour notre amendement. Voyons la volonté réelle du gouvernement de collaborer avec l'opposition. Si le gouvernement est prêt à adopter cette motion pour donner à ces 3 comités tout le pouvoir qu'ils avaient dans le passé, alors ce sera effectivement pour nous une nouvelle décision, une nouvelle approche, mais attendons de voir comment les libéraux vont réagir avant.
Mr. Scheer, just out of curiosity, let's say the roles were reversed. You were in a minority government that had switched over to majority. You as House Leader, government House Leader in this hypothetical situation, what would you have done to committee composition?
Well, Conservatives
respect the results of elections. And never before in Canadian history has the nature of a government been changed because of floor crossings, because of backroom deals, because of secret negotiations that Canadians never have an opportunity to pass judgment on. These individuals who have switched parties would never have won elections if they had run as Liberals. That's clear based on the last results in their own ridings. So I'm not going to respond to a hypothetical situation because Conservatives respect the will of the voters at the ballot box. No other government, Liberal or Conservative, in Canadian history has changed from a minority to a majority because of these types of arrangements. And what we're saying today is, don't use this power that you've cobbled together to stack the deck at committees, to change the nature of the opposition that Canadians voted for in the last election, the checks and the balances on Liberal power. We've seen what Liberals do when they have majorities. They drive up prices, they drive up taxes, they bring in ideological agendas despite the pain and suffering that it causes. Today we're saying at the very least, preserve the balance on these oversight committees. The only reason to stack the deck on these committees is to sweep corruption and conflicts of interest under the rug. Let's not do that. Let's respect what Canadians voted for at the last election.
But to be fair, and you've kind of mentioned the change of committees, you seem to be suggesting makes the opposition largely powerless on these committees. But I do remember back in 2018, committees did much of the heavy lifting on SNC-Lavalin, for example, and you were very much there, where oppositions were very much the minority. So there's obviously a driving power that you, as an opposition party, would still have majority or minority. Does that, do you think, disappear this time around? What happened to that?
When we look back to the SNC-Lavalin scandal, it took a very brave whistleblower. Remember, the Liberals used every power that they had, every ounce of weight and authority they had over their own caucus to try to sweep this under the rug. And it was a very brave whistleblower, Jody Wilson-Raybould, who ended up being kicked out of caucus for blowing the whistle on that. So absolutely, Conservatives can still play that oversight role. We will as the official opposition. But what the government is doing is reducing the tools that we have at our disposal. We don't believe that's what Canadians voted for in the last election. Clearly, they voted for a minority government with a strong opposition to act as that check and balance. Now that the Liberals have their majority, the very first thing they do is not to lower gas prices or lower grocery prices or to bring housing prices down or to bring tax relief for Canadians. No, instead, they're making life easier for the Liberal politicians in the chamber. We have time for one more, then I do have to pop in for...
Well, what do you make of the Americans apparently saying they want an entry fee for Canada to get back to the negotiating table? And okay, get your thoughts on the new advisory committee that the Prime Minister announced yesterday.
Well, I'll maybe defer to my colleague, our Shadow Minister for Trade, to have a more robust response, but I would just point out that Mark Carney needs to explain what he got in return for the leverage that he gave up this year. Remember, he unilaterally dropped reciprocal tariffs. He then dropped the digital services tax. It seems to me that from what you're suggesting that he got nothing in return for that. So I think Mr. Carney has to account to Canadians for the results of his approach to this trade dispute, and also what we can control here at home. Since Mark Carney took office, there has been more red tape added to Canadian businesses, higher taxes imposed on Canadian manufacturers. Canadian steel and aluminum manufacturers not only have to pay an industrial carbon tax that their American competitors don't have to pay, but they also have to pay the Liberal fuel standard tax to transport what they produce. Mark Carney is saddling on higher costs on Canadian businesses here at home. Those are things that he can control today. He doesn't have to negotiate with the U.S. president to provide relief for Canadian businesses and workers. And one more, and then I do have to run in for...
Mr. Scheer, other than the amendment that you plan to bring forward, how do you plan to hold the government to account amid these committee changes?
Well, we were strong and effective opposition in 2015 to 2019, the last time the Liberals had a majority. We're going to use the skills and expertise we have from a dynamic caucus full of hardworking, investigative members of Parliament who do that hard work and scrutinize line-by-line legislation and public spending. But it is clear that the Liberals are doing their best to take away some of those tools from us. The very first thing they're doing with their majority government is to make life easier for themselves instead of making life more affordable for Canadians. Thanks very much. Merci beaucoup.
Wondering, what do you think about the idea of Navdeep Bains possibly running in the Ontario Liberal leadership race?
Well, I think it's great. I mean, I think, Nav was an excellent minister. He's got a ton of, federally, he's got a ton of experience politically, but he also has a good business background. I mean, he's been involved in the party for so long, and he has a good heart. So I think it's a terrific addition to the race.
Is it official?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But if he decides to do it, I mean, I think it would be wonderful for the Ontario Liberal Party, and I think it'd be great for the people of Ontario.
What does the next leader need to be? I mean, Doug Ford's won 3 majorities in a row now, and of course, with this plane boondoggle, there could be a possible, opening there for more opportunity.
He bought the plane, he sold the plane, he bought the plane, he sold the plane. What did he do?
First of all, and what do you think a leader needs in terms of maybe even replicating Mark Carney's model of success of bringing in conservative voices into the caucus and bringing in conservative ideas potentially? Do you see that as a successful model for the next OLP leader?
No, I think the Ontario leadership needs to be liberal. I think Canadians are going to want to have a clear choice after having had, a conservative government in Ontario that has really kind of leaned into helping people who scratch their backs as opposed to necessarily putting the people of Ontario first. I think this latest scandal with regards to the plane just shows that the longer Doug Ford is in office, the less in touch he is with people. I mean, look, people are struggling to buy groceries, they're struggling to put gas in their cars, and he thinks he should have a private jet? I mean, come on, you can get around the province. I think, and then the other thing too that I was just blown away by, I saw this CBC report where, he was comparing his private jet to, planes that the governments of Canada and Quebec had bought. And those are medical evacuation planes that support people who are in crisis, get to hospitals either, between communities or from faraway places. And he was saying that he should have a private jet for that reason. Look how out of touch, Doug Ford is right now. We need to be absolutely focused and working together on ensuring that people have the resources and the supports that they need to, get through the day and support their families. And he's looking to have a luxury private jet. I mean, I think that's just ridiculous. But for me, what has always been important for the Ontario Liberal Party is to make sure that we get that balance right? We get that balance right in making sure that you create a competitive economic environment while you also take care of the people that live in your province, and I think that's what the OLP needs.
Just a quick follow-up. In terms of taking it back to the federal level, I mean, your party's welcomed in Marilyn Glad to the caucus. She's someone who has a well-known track record of social conservative views. I spoke to her today. Her views haven't changed, and she just feels like, voting with the government and being part of the government, keeping it, in charge, she's tolerated. That's how she feels, and how do you feel that model is, and of course now we have the injection of Erin O'Toole and Lisa Raitt and other conservative partisans into the U.S.-Canada Trade Council. So how do you feel about how things are coming in your party? Do you feel like now you have a bit more of an Overton window to accept more and more conservative voices and views?
Well, look, I think right now this is a moment for Canadians to come together. Look, the economic situation that we're facing, particularly with the United States, but also, we're seeing conflict around the world and how that's having an impact on Canadians here and our cost of living. This is a moment for us to be working together, rowing in the same direction as Canadians. And what I see with colleagues who are crossing the floor and joining the party is that they're saying, partisanship is not what we need to be doing right now. I want to be working for Canadians, and I want to be making sure that I'm contributing to the solutions that we need at this moment in time. And I think that that's really important as a federal government. I mean, I hesitate to say that this is a wartime moment, but it is a moment that calls upon all Canadians to put country first. And I think that's what we're seeing with the colleagues who've decided to join the Liberal Party.
Just a follow-up on the Navdeep Bains thing. If he does decide to run, would you be working with him? Would you join his campaign?
I will wait until he decides what he wants to do. But as I said, I think he's a terrific addition to the race.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Vince, now we talked already last week about the $29 million plane purchase from Doug Ford. He turned a 180 very quickly, eh?
Yes.
Why?
You're going to have to ask him.
And your reaction?
Look, I said this before. Governments make priorities, and if a priority of that government was to buy a private plane at this time, that's their decision. And now he's done a 180, like you said. You've
been very cautious and diplomatic with your responses on Ford.
Do
you back the potential candidacy of Navdeep Bains for leader of the OLP?
It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Me being diplomatic, that is. Bye, guys. See you later. Enjoy the weather.
Any thoughts on the U.S. trying to get concessions out of Canada just to start formal CUSMA talks?
Well, I think what we've seen from Trump, I mean, he's, totally irrational. I mean, it's gone nowhere with Carney. It's hard to negotiate with an authoritarian leader.
Anything you're looking for in the spring economic update?
Well, I mean, this is a government that is basing a budget on making all sorts of cuts to programs that actually keep people alive. Certainly in my community of Winnipeg Centre, he's choosing it to spend the majority of the budget on a massive increase in military spending, $13 billion in increase. And what does that look like on the ground? It means less support for people that are already struggling.
So, we heard about the GST rebate, the fuel tax cut. What other supports would you like to see the government give people who are struggling right now?
Well, those are all short-term solutions. You know, Avi Lewis and the NDP have proposed to put in place an excess profit tax that would permanently lower the price of gas. You know, they're making billions of profits right now, oil and gas companies. That doesn't seem to be a problem for the Liberals and Conservatives. So we're saying you need to do better than small 10 cents a litre at a time when people are struggling to get by. You need to change the system for the 99% and put in an excess profit tax.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Let's talk about pipeline routes.
Okay.
So Bloomberg is reporting that Alberta's looking at northern pipeline routes, 3 different routes that they're looking at. We saw the report yesterday that the federal government's really pushing for a southern route, kind of maybe parallel to Trans Mountain. You're a BC Vancouver MP. So which route do you prefer? What do you think about these talks back and forth, and how might the different routes sort of hang things up when the MOU, I mean, they have till July 1st for that deadline, but how might it impact negotiations?
Well, look, if there is a route, it requires a proponent, it requires a plan, it requires all the conditions that have been laid out. And for any route to get approved, it's going to require the province of BC, it's going to require First Nations consent. So there's a lot of ifs. And so if that were to come to pass, then I would support whatever route has come out of whatever the agreed to process with the appropriate approvals and consents need to be. I've also, I would also say that, there are very real concerns with speculating about which route, which would happen, which would not happen, and what that does in terms of creating unnecessary, sort of concern for folks. We have to get through a process that's been very, very clearly articulated. The province has made clear what its red lines are. Indigenous communities have made clear what their red lines are. We have made clear what our criteria are. And, my job as a BC MP is to make sure that we continue to remind folks that there is a very clear process that has to be followed.
But coastal First Nations have been quite clear. They said no to anything in the north, period. So given that Indigenous community buy-in has to be a part of any final deal, what do you think of Alberta continuing to pitch northern routes?
Well, I look forward to them working through those conversations. I mean, if Alberta, the proponent, whoever the proponent is going to have to work through that process, make sure they have the partnerships and the consents that are required in order to be able to do this. And that's, that's spade work that the proponent is going to have to do.
Do you have any concerns about any massive increase in tanker traffic to the port of Vancouver if it ends up going that southern route as the Globe and Mail has reported?
I mean, I'm not going to speculate on what happens based on what route is or isn't chosen. We've got to get through the process first. And then we all are going to make sure that all of the requisite steps are taken to ensure that our coastline is preserved, that, the beautiful natural environment of British Columbia is protected at the same time as we're helping to make sure that we're building economic sovereignty for this country.
And your
Thanks.
constituents, what have they said about it? We talked about that Globe and Mail report about pipelines heading to the south. Is that what the federal government would prefer, to try and have a compromise to get BC and First Nations on board?
No, I mean the province of Alberta is working on what they're going to propose. They've told us they'll propose something by June, and we'll react to it then. There's many options, and there's many pros and cons of all options.
Should Alberta drop its gas tax?
Look, we dropped the gas tax federally because we thought it would be a good affordability measure, but I'll let Alberta decide what's best for Alberta.
Bloomberg reports are still pushing for 3 possible routes in northern BC. Coastal First Nations have said a flat-out no. So If that's the case, is this going to be a big hurdle or challenge to try and get a pipeline through then?
Well, it's all speculative until we get something from Alberta that we can all react to. The federal government, British Columbia, First Nations, conversations are ongoing, but don't want to prejudge any of those.
What do you make of the Americans asking for concessions for us to access the American market?
Well, look, it's been a long-standing and productive trade relationship. Obviously, this is not the most productive moment we've had in trade relations, but we remain very strong allies, very good friends. You know, I have family in the United States. I know I'm not alone in that. And we'll work through it all, but I think we also have to appreciate it's a negotiation, and sometimes people play a little bit of hardball in negotiation. We get to choose our reaction. We don't have to react to everything.